Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Friday, December 5th, 2014, around 9:23 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. It was sleeting outside, but it's not going to amount to anything. It's supposed to change to rain showers as the temperature goes up, and up. Tomorrow's going to be rain showers on and off throughout the day. We may reach 50. Some news to report. CNN's chief political correspondent, Candy Crowley, has left the network. Candy was with CNN for 27 years. She was most recently the host of State of the Union, CNN's Sunday morning political program. And also, the BC men's basketball team scored an upset by beating Providence College by the score of 69-62. Two of those, BC and Providence, were once Big East rivals for many years, and Providence was ranked in the top 25 earlier this year, and the defending Big East regular season champions and postseason champions. So this was a mild upset, and that's about it on that. My next subject is about my personality profile. My personality profile is about former professional wrestler, the Olympic strongman Ken Patera. Ken Patera had a career in weightlifting. He went to the Olympics, and eventually he became a professional wrestler, and he was one of the best heels of all time in the world of professional wrestling. Ken was born in Portland, Oregon, and he grew up in Portland, Oregon. He played football and track and field in high school, and he comes from an athletic family. His brother Jack played in the NFL for the Colts. Eventually, he was the first coach of the Seahawks for about 7 years. Amazing. Then Ken Patera went to Brigham Young University on an athletic scholarship, and on track and field he was a great shot putter and stuff. He won a gold medal in shot putting at the 1967 Pan Am Games, and then he tried out for the U.S. Olympic team in shot putting in 1968, but he did not make the U.S. Olympic track and field team. He was a disappointing sixth. Then he focused on weightlifting for the next 5 years. Ken was a weightlifter. He won many world championships 4 years in a row. He was the first American to military press 500 pounds over his head and clear and jerk over 500 pounds over his head. He won a gold medal in 1971 Pan Am Games, and he made the U.S. weightlifting team in 1972, but he did not win a medal in the 1972 Summer Olympic Games in weightlifting in Germany, and then he decided to retire from weightlifting. He worked as a bouncer in Minnesota for a while at a couple of bars. He was discovered by one of the wrestlers, Ric Flair, who was being trained by Vern Gagne to make his pro wrestling debut around 1972. Ken Patera trained to be a professional wrestler by Vern Gagne, and in 1973, Ken Patera made his professional wrestling debut in the AWA. He was billed as the Olympic strongman. He was a heel in the AWA in 1973. The next year, in 1974, he went to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and he wrestled as a face for the first time. He feuded with Johnny Valiant Valentine over the U.S. title, and it was an amazing feud. It was just to boost Ken Patera to be a decent wrestler. Johnny Valentine was one of the most famous wrestlers of all time. Johnny Valentine won this feud easily, but this got Ken Patera trained to be a good wrestler. Ken Patera was known for having bleached blonde hair, and he had the Olympic gimmick in full force. His favorite move was the full Nelson, was also nicknamed the swinging neck breaker, and he put many opponents out of that. Ken Patera is known in the world of professional wrestling for having 4 runs in the WWF, the WWF, and the WWE. Ken Patera came to the WWF in 1976. He was managed by Captain Lou Albano to push him as a top contender for the title for Bruno Sammartino. He put the swinging full Nelson neckbreaker and broke the neck of Billy White Wolf, who at that time was one half of the WWF Tag Team Champions with Chief Jay Steinbarrow. Billy White Wolf was actually Admiral Al Casey, but he was Billy White Wolf in the WWE. And then Ken Patera had a series of matches with Bruno Sammartino over the WWF title in Madison Square Garden in 1977 stuff. One of the episodes of Championship Wrestling, Ken Patera showed his amazing strength to Vince McMahon. He put a nail through a board, then bent a pipe, and when he went for the hot water bottle, it popped on him. But this was a show of strength to push Ken Patera over as a major heel and stuff. And then from 1978 through 1979, Ken Patera went to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, feuded with Tony Atlas, Jim Brunzell over the Mid-Atlantic World title, and then he teamed with Big John Studd to win the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling Tag Team titles a couple of times. Ken Patera dyed his hair brown when he was in Mid-Atlantic because they had a lot of blonde heels. Ken Patera came back to WWE in 1980, back with his blonde hair, and he was managed by the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. Ken Patera got into a feud with Bob Backlund over the WWF title, and then he won the WWF IC title over Pat Patterson at Madison Square Garden in April of 1980. And then Ken Patera had a classic match with Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden in May of 1980. That match he had was a Texas Death Match. It was voted 1980 Match of the Year by Wrestling Observer Newsletter. And Ken feuded with other wrestlers when he was IC champion, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, Pedro Morales, Andre the Giant, Gorilla Monsoon. Eventually Ken Patera lost it to Pedro Morales at Madison Square Garden in December 1980. Then he disappeared from the WWE for a while. He showed up in several other wrestling organizations in 1981 and 1982 before settling in the AWA. He was part of the Heenan family in the AWA, which consisted of champion Nick Bockwinkel, Bobby Duncan Sr., and Blackjack Lanza. They feud with Hulk Hogan and the High Flyers and Andre the Giant. And around this time, Sheik Adnan Al-Kursi managed Jerry Blackwell, and Adnan Al-Kursi offered Bobby the Brain Heenan over $250,000 to buy Ken Patera's contract off of him. He sold him Ken Patera's contract, and Jerry Blackwell was just dressing like as a sheik, and soon Ken Patera was dressed as a sheik. Unbelievable, former Olympic weightlifter dressing as a sheik, but that's wrestling, it's money. And then Sheik Adnan Al-Casey leads Blackwell and Patera to the AWA World Tag Team Championships, beating the High Flyers, which was Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell. In 1983, they had about a year-long reign before losing it to Baron von Lasky and the Crusher. Around on April 6, 1984 was an infamous day in Ken Patera's life, because during that, after a wrestling event in Wisconsin, Ken Patera and another wrestler, Mr. Saito, went into a McDonald's, but McDonald's was closed. They didn't want to serve them after hours. Anything. Ken Patera says it closed down like a minute after, and they were hungry, so Ken Patera threw in a brick, and then they got into the McDonald's. Then they got into a fight and stuff with the employees and Mr. Saito and Ken Patera, and then Ken Patera and Mr. Saito were arrested. Eventually, Ken Patera was convicted and thrown in jail in May of 1985. Before this happened, Ken Patera returned to the WWE as a heel. He was briefly managed by Captain Lou Albano again. Then he joined the Heenan family with Big John Studd. They had the infamous haircut match between him and Studd, teaming with Andre the Giant and SD Jones. They cut Andre the Giant's hair. Also on TNT, Ken Patera had his amazing strength. He pushed back a car driven by Vince McMahon. And in May of 1985, Ken Patera was in the middle of a feud with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Then when he got convicted, he was sent to jail for 18 months. WWE did not acknowledge that Ken Patera was in jail. He was written off TV for 18 months. And then when he got out of jail, the WWE hyped the storyline, saying that Ken Patera's storytelling and his background of the Olympics. And then him joined the WWE and saying the Heenan, joining the Heenan family. The storyline says Ken Patera's association with Bobby the Brain Heenan landed him in jail. That was just a storyline. And this made Ken Patera a sympathetic face. And then Bobby the Brain Heenan was bad-mouthing Ken Patera about blaming him. He ended up in jail. And then they had a debate on WWE Superstars of Wrestling. And it was a debate where with Ken Patera bad-mouthing Bobby the Brain Heenan, saying he did not call. And then Bobby the Brain Heenan saying other stuff. And then at the end of the debate, Heenan was like trying to beat up Ken Patera with his belt, but Patera came back and attacked Heenan and stuff, hurt his neck, and then Bobby the Brain Heenan had to wear that neck brace for a while, just part of the storyline. And then Ken Patera had a match with Hercules Hernandez. Bobby the Brain Heenan and King Harley Race was with Hercules Hernandez, and when Ken Patera was going to beat Hercules, Harley Race interferes, causing the disqualification, and Billy Jack Haynes helps out and stuff like that. And then this was supposed to start a major feud between Ken Patera and the Heenan family. There was one match on WWE Superstars after Ken Patera beat a preliminary wrestler. They had the whole Heenan family come down, King Kong Bundy, Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, Hercules, and Harley Race to beat up on Ken Patera and stuff like that. Eventually, during a TV taping, Ken Patera pulled a bicep, torn his bicep, and he was out for several months. And they had, he was in a big cast when he was to return. You got humongous cast, and his feud with the Heenan family kind of died down after that. It was just a big push for him to be feuding with the Heenan family and stuff, but it died off when he got injured. And then Ken Patera teamed with Billy Jack Haynes. They feuded with Demolition for a while, but it was Ken Patera put over Demolition in these tag team matches. And by the spring of 1988, Ken Patera was basically kind of a jobber to the stars. He looked awful in the ring. He had ring rust. Many of the announcers, including Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Sayes, says he should have retired. Ken Patera got into a feud with Dino Bravo, the Canadian Strongest Man, and in some of the interviews, Ken Patera was hyping, where were your records of beating lifting 712 pounds? I don't see that in the record books. That was just to get Dino Bravo over as a strong man heel. And they had some matches where they had a first fall, like an arm wrestling contest, and then next a regular match with Dino Bravo would win these matches pretty easily just to get Dino Bravo over as a mid-card heel. And in the first SummerSlam, 1988, Ken Patera loses to Bad News Brown and stuff. Then he puts Addison Rick Rude over. He puts other people over. And Ken Patera's face run in WWE was awful. Ken Patera was much better than a heel and stuff like that. But when he went into jail, WWE wanted to put sympathy on him and make him a face, which, it was okay at first with the Heenan family, but when he got injured, it died out. And he just Ken Patera just fizzled out as a face. His last appearance in a WWE ring was Survivor Series 1988. And then he left and he wrestled. Returned to the AWA to team with Brad Ragans, who was a legitimate Olympic wrestler. They beat Bad Company for the AWA World Tag Team Championship in April of 1989, and they feuded with the Destruction Crew. But like the Destruction Crew injured Ken Patera and Brad Ragans. But this was to get like Brad Ragans out for a while because he needed legitimate knee surgery. And then Ken Patera was hurt. Eventually this feud was forgotten because the AWA was going downhill. And then Ken Patera, for the last few years of his professional wrestling career, wrestled in independence in the old UWF California, ran by Herb Abrams, which Ken Patera returned to his heel roots. The fans were calling him Jailbird, 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 but he was not a legitimate heel. He came out to the music of the wide world of sports film, corny music for a heel and stuff, but he didn't go anywhere. And then he promoted he went to the PWA in Minnesota, and he promoted his own wrestling cards independently in the mid-90s and stuff like that. Promoted his own cards. He retired from the wrestling ring in the mid-90s, and he still lives in Minnesota and stuff like that. He's appeared on a few shoot interviews here and there. There was one shoot interview I have of him back in 2004, which he didn't want to talk about what happened at the incident on April of 1984 on that shoot interview, but he kind of doesn't have good words to say about Vince McMahon. And he did another shoot interview with RF Video, which he talks about the incident that happened in 1984 and stuff like that. Ken Patera's appeared on a couple of WWE DVDs, the one with Bobby the Brain Heenan and the one with the 50th anniversary and stuff like that. But I don't know if he'll ever go into the WWE Hall of Fame because he doesn't say good stuff about Vince McMahon. And Ken Patera was 2 times the PWI Most Hated Wrestler of the Year 1977 and 1981. And Ken Patera ranks probably in the top 20 to 30 heels of all time. And Ken Patera was one of the wrestlers who should have never turned face, in my opinion. But that's the way it goes and stuff like that. And that's about it on that. Tomorrow, Facebook friends and YouTube followers, 3 more video blogs. I cannot mention what they are. Can't speculate what they are. If you're my Facebook friend, they'll be revealed in my final video, my final post of the night. Good night, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Bye now.